Now that the Fantastic Four are officially part of the MCU, does it live up to the hype or does it fall short? Let's talk about it. So last night I got to go to an early screening of the Fantastic Four First Steps. I'm going to give you all of my spoiler-free thoughts on the movie, what I thought about each character, but I won't give away any major plot details just so you know you're not worried about having the movie spoiled for yourself or anything like that. I'm also going to just show off one or two goodies that I always try to do when I go to these screenings and stuff like that. So before we get started, just know I will be putting out a ranking of my current MCU ranking, and then I'll also be putting out a ranking of the Fantastic Four movies. You guys gotta get a fresh perspective on where I sit with those, and let's dive in. So we didn't get too much this time, but we did get this really cool poster that they have been kind of marketing. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And now let's talk about the movie. So probably the biggest thing that I really want to talk about is just each individual member of this team. They very much don't make anyone feel excluded or feels like they prioritized one character over the other. Get each a little character moments with each one, and they all have their own little problems that they're going through, or things that they need to work through with the family. And that's the thing, they feel like a family. They don't feel like just like friends that are that say they're family just for the sake of being together. They literally argue a little bit like a family. They love each other like a family, and they stick together like a family. And it's just really nice to see that in a MCU kind of setting where they are against a much bigger threat, and it's just like not an ordinary family, but just like a family trying to do the best they can. So starting with Ben Grimm, he kind of gets a little surprising little romance kind of sprinkled out through the movie. It's not much, but they do kind of hint at it, and it's nice. He kind of is like just trying to make the people of New York happy. When kids see him, he'll lift a car, or he's just trying to interact with everyone. And you kind of have to wonder, because this is 4 years after they had their powers, if this is how he kind of got the main public to see him, so that they don't see him as this huge rock monster, and rather they see him as this very fun, openly warm guy. And that is what the public sees him as. Although I will say they do kind of show one or two moments where it's he does miss the way he looks, but you can tell he's gone through the development of understanding and being okay with who he is now. It's just in those weak moments he has the is this really what's best for me kind of outlook. But he's a very confident in who he is now, and how he looks. Johnny was one of the ones that surprised me the most, as in past versions and iterations, they've always made him kind of the hot rod, kind of the torch, right? The ladies' man, the showboater. And yes, he has all of that in this movie, but they don't make him one-dimensional. They make him, have a couple of other traits that, he actually is pretty integral into figuring out some of the stuff with Shah LaBelle, and just kind of taking his own interests, trying to figure them out. And that's one thing that Johnny's always been really good at is, if he cares about something, or he has some kind of vendetta, or if he is on a mission, he'll complete it. A lot of times in the past, Johnny has had a mission of oh, I just want to look cool, or I want this, and he makes it happen. And that's kind of the same thing here, when he gets he's been collecting these things for months, and he kind of goes up on a slight side plot that still leads to the main plot. For me, Sue felt like the heart of this team. I have to give Vanessa Kirby just a lot of credit here, because I believe she was actually pregnant while filming this movie, which is, I don't know if that's the total reason they did the Franklin Richards thing, but I imagine it was slightly part of the reason, right? The whole thing with her protecting Franklin and fighting off Galactus and, still being part of this team, she's all, just in very different corners of this movie, and trying to be the voice of the Fantastic Four to the people, and saying, hey, just because I'm trying to protect my son doesn't mean I don't want to also protect the world. Two things can be true at once. And really, she just is the heart and soul of the Fantastic Four. She speaks on behalf of them. She brings them together when they're, might be arguing or whatever it may be. She really is just the mom of this group. And again, Reed is just as perfect as all of these other characters are. He, kind of gets into this thing where, he now knows he's going to be a father. He goes into a slight panic mode of making sure everything's right. And then when the main plot starts happening, he's a thinker. He will think of all of the different outcomes and what can happen and try to avoid them. And he is kind of like the miracle worker, I want to say, where like everyone's like, hey, like, what are we going to do? And he doesn't have that solution. He doesn't actually end up necessarily coming up with the solution. He gets the idea and then, makes the necessary things with his big brain to solve the solution, but he relies on his family to kind of get him there. And that's what I love, because it's not just him solo. He does need the Fantastic Four. He needs his family. And he's just great. Herbie is in there, and there are a couple fun scenes with him where he's just making his weird robotic sounds and, protecting Franklin and doing all these different things, right? Like helping cook in the kitchen. But he makes the movie a little bit more well-rounded, and quite honestly, he helps with a lot of the making it feel like a family, because it just feels like, he's like the house, guy. There's this whole part where like he's doing chores and doing all this different stuff, and it works for me. Shia LaBeouf plays a great Silver Surfer, and quite honestly, I wasn't expecting to get as much on her background as they did. Her and Johnny kind of have a plot line that go hand in foot. She visually looks amazing. And they kind of, the backstory that they, kind of take you through with her kind of leads to a very good ending with her character. First thing I said last night when I walked out of this movie was that this visually is the best movie the MCU has done. Visually, it just looks the part. It is distinctive. Like, even just like, not even just the visuals themselves, but like the way that characters show themselves, like different villains or just everyday people. It's fun to look at because we're so used to like the modern day MCU of like how things typically look. This is not that, and it's fun. Like, not like the computers are all like not modern, like they can do modern things, but they don't look modern. And that's exactly what I wanted to see out of this. I was hoping it wouldn't just be like a show for like the outside and the buildings. No, everything is fully encompassed in this world, and it looks great. You heard me talk about how this world feels very lived in. There are multiple Fantastic Four villains mentioned throughout this movie, and again, they are all great. Some of them you actually get to look at, but others are just mentioned, and again, it just makes the world feel lived in, and it's just fun. Galactus is absolutely menacing. From the moment that they say his name to like the curiosity of like, what's a Galactus? What does that even mean? To meeting him for the first time, to hearing his demands, and then the doomsday clock starts ticking. That whole thing is just like a big, black shadow hovering over this movie until the time runs out. And the first time that the Fantastic Four, talk to Galactus and meet with him is just like you feel frozen, like in scale and how big he is, and just the face that he makes is very still and stern, and pretty much like what he says is what's going to happen. He almost speaks it into existence. Not to mention, he's a pretty powerful dude that can almost do whatever he wants. I feel like I do have to talk about the CGI and how visually great it looks. In the beginning of the movie, you really get to see all, the four use their powers, and I think they do a pretty good job of like not doing it all at once and still kind of using that awe towards, the middle, then the end, and just kind of like maintaining that sense of like, we're not going to overuse the powers so that it doesn't get old really fast. They do a really good job of doing that with this movie. And all the times they use their powers, they look great. Reed looks fantastic, no pun intended. Sue overuses her powers and like really, I can't really talk about it, but will end up surprising a lot of people with how powerful she actually is. Johnny is extremely powerful, and they even add a couple, I don't want to say new abilities because they're not new, but abilities that we haven't seen brought to the movie side that are actually pretty neat. And Ben's are great too. You know, he's stronger than ever, you know, helping knock down buildings, and he even uses his powers in some kind of like moderate ways where like he's like trying to like cook with stuff, and it's fun. One of the last things I want to talk about is just how much I love the fact that this world that they live in are fully embracing the Fantastic Four. There is a plot where, you know, they question the Fantastic Four and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, they are with the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four is the world's family. They treat them like their family, and when, you know, with the ever-imposing doom of Galactus coming, when the Fantastic Four asks the world for help to do certain things, the world is right there to respond and to help them, and it becomes this, not just the Fantastic Four against Galactus, but the whole world collectively working together to fight off Galactus. And that really like just kind of like made me all cheery, and getting to see everyone work together was really just nothing short of amazing. Make sure you do stay for the end credits, as there's two of them. One is a more serious one, one's a more like fun, lighthearted one that I feel like they both are worth staying for. Yeah, but yeah, guys, that is my review for the Fantastic Four First Steps. Again, let me know what you guys thought about the movie, and if you plan on seeing it this weekend, you know, leave a comment. What did you think about it? Do you think it compares to the other movies? Do you think it's, you know, worse than the other movies? Which I don't see how that's possible, but everyone has their opinion. And, you know, let me know. I will be putting out a MCU ranking, so let me know, you know, what your MCU ranking now is changed to fit Fantastic Four the First Steps, and kind of where it falls on that line. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace, Colonels.